will. Saludos and salutations, Broncos Country, and welcome into another exciting episode of Broncos Talk. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited. I'm almost losing my voice. Today, we have a great show for you today. Libre and I are going to talk about building around Bo. What does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? I don't know. Libre doesn't know, but we're definitely going to talk about it and get to the bottom of it. Also, your favorite segment, Broncos Overtime, comes back again. Ladies and gentlemen, please make sure you are strapped in. Get that beer cold, that food warm. Get it ready because you don't want to miss a single action of today's show. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, here we go.
Broncos talk, let's rock, feel the energy rise. From the microphone to the fans reaching the skies. Every episode a thrill and surprise. For the love of the game, we harmonize.
How can you listen to that jam and not make you want to dance? You know, I'm telling you, it is.
Just like watching Quinn Miners dance, I think he's dancing to that song when he's there at training camp. And that's the best part about what I like about it.
Yeah, I can't dance. I have the rhythm of a tree. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another exciting episode of Broncos Talk. I am your host, Adan Diaz, and joining me to my left or right, depending on which way you are watching, is my co-host, Bronco Libre. Libre, how the hell are you doing tonight, my friend?
What's happening? I'm doing wonderful. Let's go.
I'm telling you, bro, we need to get that on a t-shirt. What's happening?
What's happening?
It's going to go
we need
big,
to
man.
market it quick.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to go big. I'm going to shoot a message to Johnny Baki, and I'm going to tell him to get to work on it, add it to the store next to all the awesome stuff that they already have there. But ladies and gentlemen, I do apologize for starting a little bit late today, but we were just so excited. Libre and I sometimes get caught up talking backstage, and I lose track of time, so you can blame me for that. We have a great show for you guys tonight. We are going to talk about building around Bo, and we're going to go into detail as to what that is. But just in case, if you're new to this channel or this show, got a couple of things we got to get out of the way first before we get down and talk about any and all things Broncos football. So without further ado, first of all, Libre and I would like to ask you to please subscribe, share, comment, and like here on the Orange and Blue Network. Ladies and gentlemen, your support here on this show goes a long way. And it definitely goes a long way on the network as well. We have a lot of great shows already here on this network, and we got some more surprises coming to you down the pipeline. So make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss a single moment of the action. Also, this is a simulcast, which means we are, I don't know if televised is the right word, but we are live streaming on the two different networks at the exact same time. So please make sure you show your support for MHRT Network. Subscribe, share, comment, and like on all their shows and content because they work really hard to put out the content for you guys out in Broncos Country, especially right now during the offseason, because it is going to be a long stretch, ladies and gentlemen. So we are going to try to do our very best to keep you entertained. Also, for our audio listeners, I have to say that for the very first time, and I forgot to mention to this Libre earlier, for the very first time, our show last week reached 15 listeners in just 1 week's time. So that was a very amazing feat. Thank you to all of you out there that made that happen. Normally our shows on Spotify anyway, they reach between the lesser, there are some that actually reach that point, but it takes time, and it's usually somebody that goes all the way to the very beginning, I would imagine, and works their way up. But last week, thanks to you guys, we reached 15 listeners on last week's show. So thank you to all those that have done. And I don't know if it was just Spotify, because when I uploaded onto the Anchor website or whatever, it spreads it out to Amazon and Apple and all those places. So wherever it is, thank you guys so much for tuning in, all 15 of you guys. And for those that are still counting, thank you so much. If we can keep hitting those numbers like that continuously, ladies and gentlemen, we are on to something big and beautiful, like myself.
But that now that you say about 15,
yeah,
one thing that you have to remember with the Denver Nuggets, who's number 15 on the Denver Nuggets? It's the Joker. Sean Payton. Sean Payton said, we need to get ourselves a Joker.
Okay, now we need to get to 23 so we can bring it back to Jordan level-esque. But regardless, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much. And again, Libre and I would like to reiterate to you guys, please make sure 5-star reviews wherever it is you guys are listening to. Make sure you screenshot it, send it to us on our socials. Mine is there at the bottom. My Twitter is at Atlas6for10Mexican. Libre is at Bronco Libre 5280. And also, ladies and gentlemen, for those that don't know, today's show is sponsored by Dubby. Now, you might be asking yourself, if you're a first-time listener, what the hell is Dubby? Dubby is a taste bud energy drink that is formulated to be your favorite. Basically, it's all the good stuff without all the bad. So you guys, I'm pretty sure you're used to drinking coffee and taking energy drinks like I do when you just need that extra boost of energy to get through your day. And of course, lots of people will tell you, especially in the medical field, will tell you that putting that stuff in your body is bad for you. And that's where Dubby comes in. Because basically, Dubby was formulated to give you focus and energy with no jitters or crash. The formula contains vitamins, amino acids, and nootropics, including the patented neurofactor formula. Basically, Dubby contains no calories, no sugar, no maltodextrin, no fillers, and no artificial colors. Again, ladies and gentlemen, Dubby comes in a lot of great flavors, and they are there to help you get through your day healthier. And to show you guys how good Johnny Baki is and the guys over at the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast that airs every Tuesday, except for this week. They'll be on tomorrow. They want to hook you guys up with 10% off, so make sure you use the code NRWOB10 to get 10% off at checkout. Again, that code is NRWOB10 to get your 10% off at checkout. Shout out to Dubby for being a sponsor of this show and all the shows here on the Orange and Blue Network. And also shout out to Johnny Bach and the guys over at the Nothing Rhymes With podcast for hooking you guys up with 10%. I'm telling you, Johnny is a saint, and he's going to be enshrined in a statue someday somewhere. If I'm not forgetting anything, because I feel like I am, Libre. No, that's
it. You did it.
Yeah.
You know what? And I'm not even that tired after you said it. So something's going on. I might have had one of the Dubby drinks, I think.
I should have. Oh, also, shout out to our TikTok audience that are watching us and that have supported us. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys as well. Thank you for all the likes.
Yeah, if you see us going in between here in the chat and looking offside, it's because we're trying to engage with our TikTok audience. We are trying to expand our show to the best of our abilities. So, believe it or not, Libre is the more popular TikToker than I am. So, I'm counting on him to help us get those numbers up. You know,
we will. Look at that. Look at it. We already have somebody liking it all up. Unknown 303. Let's go. I like
Gray, Seahawk, and Ryan on my chat. They're joined, but I only have one viewer, so I don't know if that's me. I mean, it doesn't. As long as you guys come by and you at least, feel free to say hi. If you have any questions you'd like us to answer, we definitely appreciate it. Also, shout out to my good friend Chris Hernandez, that is a faithful listener, has been listening to this show since the very, very first episode. I talked to him recently, and he has nothing but love for us, Libre. So
awesome!
A big shout out to him, and thank you to him and all the others who have continued their support throughout the years. I got to catch up with them. I don't have their handles. They usually just drop a message, but it's nothing where we can keep up. Let's say hi to the chat real quick. Your cousin Juan Marquez is here. You say, "What's up, guys? Been a couple of weeks since I've been able to watch it live. Thanks again for the birthday wishes a couple of weeks ago."
Of course, always love, brother. Course, always man. Love.
El amor is for everybody. Oh, also, how the hell can I forget? Viva los Broncos every Friday. Please make sure you tell your friends. All Spanish podcast. Basically, it's this show, but in Spanish. D-Rock saying Knicks for 6. He also says Adon and Libre. D-Rock, thank you so much for your support, my friend. Kodiak Bronco saying, hola, hermanos. Hola, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
So always appreciate to see you here on the show. Fanatic Dak saying, what's good, fellas? What is good, Fanatic Dak?
What is happening, Vapo Loco?
And again, Libre and I would also like to send a special shout out to Mark Carmelini, who is also a big supporter of this show and a lot of Broncos podcasts throughout the Broncos universe. But he also is always showing love, and he's always reposting all of our tweets. So thank you so much to him. I'm telling you guys, Libre and I are feeling the love, and we are so appreciative. There are many things to go around, and I'm pretty sure you guys have heard saying it a million times, but we cannot thank you guys enough. So thank you guys for believing in us. Thank you guys for your support. And to think that this entire show started with just this microphone. Literally, I've had it since the day I started. This little bougie camera you're watching me on. And this isn't the same room I started in, but it doesn't matter if I'm in this room, downstairs, where it is. I can guarantee you that this dream, with your support, will continue to live on forever.
Yeah.
But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to the topic at hand, which is building around Bo. So I was telling Libre before the show that I was kind of like, I had this idea about what we wanted to talk about on today's show. And basically, I did talk to Libre earlier, and I told him that while I do love the selections that the Broncos have made to improve the defense, and they're very, very well needed, regardless of sidebar, there is a couple of people who I read, analysts, let's call them, that are frowning upon the signings of Hufanga and Greenlaw, saying that, quote unquote, they're the worst agency signings because of their injury history. Okay. So to them, I say, well, we can't curse on the show, but you know what I mean by that. And those guys are going to prove everybody wrong this coming season. Okay.
You know what I like about this, though, is, yes, I talked about this last week itself. We got these guys at a discount because of these injuries. And again, this is what free agency is all about as well. Is like, obviously the team that they're currently on don't want them back anymore. That's why they're free agency. That's why they hit the free agency market. These two, yes, they had injuries, but again, this is all about the gamble that these guys are taking on these other players that are coming in. There are some players that are good that are going to come up that are not coming off injuries. They're just extended their time there at the current team. These two, for us, I feel we got these guys at a discounted price because of the injuries. But I am so happy that the league and all these other media outlets are looking at us as still underdogs and not giving us the credit that we deserve and whatever. But you know what? That makes it that much more sweeter. So when we go out there and we dominate, like we did this last year, when everybody really counted us out, that we're just going to go out there and we're just going to dominate. I believe we're going to win the West this year, and they're going to be the top part of the team that helps us do that. And this is what I love, that underdog story. Count us out all you want, but we're going to come out strong, and we're going to come out with a full fury that the league is not going to be ready for this team.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I cannot wait for them boys to go out there and put in some work. Okay?
Yeah.
But going back to what I was saying a few minutes ago, so I started thinking to myself, what else do the Broncos need to do to build around Bo? Okay, so like Juan Marquez says here, Libre, your cousin, he says, guys, I like the Evan Ingram addition, but he still thinks that we need a tight end and a running back. So basically, that's where I was going to, where my point, just Juan beat me to it, is that basically the Broncos still have work to do. Now, there are a couple of good names still available to be signed, but I believe that most teams are going to wait until after the draft to see who they can pick up, who's still left available. Okay. So while I do think that the Broncos still need a running back, right? This is just a prediction. I don't think that the Broncos need to jump up.
No.
Anywhere higher than maybe like a spot or two, if at that, because I don't feel like this isn't like previous years where they're trying to find a quarterback or they're trying to find the best available and they have to jump up to get it. Okay, for the first time in a long time, the Broncos are set at quarterback. It's not a big need. Cornerback, they have the best cornerback in the league, and he's paid. So they're set at that. They built up on free agency with the signings of Greenlaw and Ufanga. They're set at that. Okay, so whatever's added to the defense from now until week 1 is literally going to be for rotational purposes. There's no absolute need. Now, the jury's still out on Singleton. Singleton could be somebody that if the Broncos decide to move on, especially if they do get a high pick linebacker or they trade for one, then, that could still be a possibility. But I don't think so. I think that Singleton is going to get another chance to play in Denver this season. But for Bo, there's still a lot that needs to happen for to do what Libre said, where he predicted that the Broncos could take the West. And going into this season, ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, the Chiefs are not the team to beat. It's the Chargers. The Chargers, to me, are going to be the team to beat because right now the Chiefs, they're going to come in with their tails between their legs because they just got creamed in the Super Bowl. Their offensive line has literally been rearranged, and we've already seen what happens to Patrick Mahomes when his offensive line does not work. And if what you saw from last year, that should have been a sweep. So I have no doubt in my mind that the Broncos could really sweep the Chiefs, and I'm pretty sure they're going to sweep the Raiders. But the Chargers are the ones that are going to be tough to beat. And this is just a hot take, early prediction here, Lee, before I turn it over to you. It's the division going to come down between LA and the Broncos.
I agree with you with that 100%. Those people, the national media is going to be out there with KC. You have to be KC. They've been to the Super Bowl X amount of times, whatever, these last several years. That's what they're banking on right now. But like how you said, they are on the decline. They're going down. And the Chargers are up and coming. Harbaugh has done such a good job in his first year that it is going to be a team to watch out for. Evan Ingram went over there and visited with them before he actually signed with us. He was here first, went there, and Evan Ingram liked it here. I don't know what type of terms that he was trying to get or whatnot, and if the Broncos was better than what they were trying to offer him. Like, again, I don't know what was actually offered, what the Chargers really offered, but I'm glad that he's here because he is going to add that support that Bo's going to need that we didn't have during this last season, where we could have actually potentially won the West if we did have an Evan Ingram in that tight end position itself.
Yeah, and you know what? D-Rock makes a good point here. He says, get Chubb for the star veteran role model presence in the locker room.
Agree.
I personally, you guys have heard me. This is still a prediction that's still on the board for me as a possibility. It's a pretty far possibility, but if the Broncos don't get the running back that they want in the draft, then you can definitely hope or think or consider that they may try to make a phone call to a certain team. My guess is Cleveland, because they're going to need all the cap help, the cap space help that they can get. And getting a guy like they're literally going to have to do something because the team that they have right now is not good for anybody. It's, I get it. Kenny Pickett came and he just won a Super Bowl title, but Kenny Pickett is not the type of quarterback that's going to guide a team to a Super Bowl, especially the Browns, especially when he has to now contend with Joe Burrow and extended Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. The Ravens, they're definitely going to come out angry after how they lost with Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson is going to be a problem for days. So that's just how I think it is. And if speaking of cousins here, Libre, I'm pretty sure this is my cousin who says the Chiefs are still the team to beat until it could be a coincidence because there's a lot of Ivan Diaz's everywhere, but I'm pretty sure this is my cousin. Who says that the Chiefs are still the team to beat until further notice. Best quarterback and head coach combo in that division. Well, I would put an asterisk at that second part of that statement. And you're right. The Chiefs are still a team to beat. I'm not saying that they're not going to, that they aren't. I'm saying that the Broncos are going to do what they should have done last year and sweep them and do what should have happened. That's what I'm telling you to do.
So everyone, you have to look at this as well. We saw the recipe, what needs to be done to beat KC, and it was on the biggest stage of them all. Mm-hmm. And again, the NFL is a copycat league. No matter how you look at it, what team it is, whatever it is, you know, the teams were doing that in the late 90s when the Broncos were winning back-to-back Super Bowls. You know, now it's just happened to be KC. Now that we've seen that the Eagles, what they were able to do, if you can just get pressure on Mahomes with just 4, and if you can get the pressure with just your 4 linemen and you have everyone else back in coverage, Mahomes is not going to be able to do anything. And I think that was the recipe that the league just needed to have there. So you're going to see other teams do the exact same thing. And it's going to be, I feel like that game is the demise of the KC. And I felt like if you go back to 2015, like 10 years ago, what happened? We did that to Carolina. Carolina was going into that Super Bowl as one of the hottest offensive out there, and we just destroyed Cam Newton. Cam Newton was never the same after that game.
Now, if you want to make an argument for best quarterback and head coach combo in that division, I'll definitely hear it.
Oh, yeah.
And there is a case for it, a strong case. I will give you that. But this statement, before even midseason, I can already see the headlines of the Chiefs struggling because Jawan Taylor, if they would have penalized Jawan Taylor for every single false start, Mahomes would probably catch a safety before he actually threw the ball. Okay, so they got really lucky in all those snaps. And if this is my cousin, like I think it is, you guys, the Bears, took Joe Thuney away from them, who was one of their best offensive linemen. So
yeah.
And I have no faith in none of the picks that they got in free agency, just for the simple fact that they don't have the money for it. Okay, they have to keep restructuring contracts to try to stay away from cap hell. And Andy Reid's intelligence is really going to come into question, and it's really going to be tested this season because I'm telling you, to pull yourself away from that type, and this is from Broncos fans. I'm talking about after we lost to the Seahawks, the mentality of having to pull yourself out of that. I don't know what the word is. I'm thinking in my head. Just out of that rut. It's not easy. Some guys can do it, some guys can't, and you can see it out there on the field. Okay, that's all I'm saying. I'm just saying that if you're a Chiefs fan and you think that you're going to run it back to 14 and 2, you are really, really delusional. And the fact that Travis Kelce is still playing for the Chiefs is not going to do anything for Kansas City because he's going to come in more distracted. He's obviously older, so he's going to have lost some step, which happens to every single NFL player. It's not just Kelce. Like, there are a lot of factors going in. And while Patrick Mahomes may be regarded as one of the best quarterbacks, there's only so much he can do. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yes, the Chiefs are bringing back Hollywood Brown, but they lost DeAndre Hopkins. They couldn't keep him. He went to Baltimore. So they do have a running game when Patrick Mahomes isn't accidentally running into them and knocking them out. So that's where I feel that they're going to try to get some of their points. But again, if that offensive line, look at Denver last year, if that offensive line isn't made to open gaps for the running game, it doesn't matter who's chucking the ball. That running back isn't going to go anywhere.
No, I agree.
But to go back to our main point about Bo Nix, it's just, again, the addition of Evan Ingram is good, especially since he's already acquired this whole Joker, not perspective, but
that
just kind of like
they have,
yeah, like this whole thing. He's picked it up and he's running with it. Tight end is definitely. I wouldn't be. You mentioned Loveland. Loveland was one of the tight ends that you wanted to see Denver pick. Yep. I don't mind seeing that. As long as the 20th pick, I believe, goes to somewhere in the offense to give Bo Nix more leeway in terms of, okay, we're going to bring in X player and X player is going to come in and he's going to spread out the field. You know, it's going to be his rookie year. We do need to see more from Troy Franklin, because the whole reason that the Broncos spent the pick on him last year is because, you know, him and Bo played at Oregon the year before. They have chemistry. They have to get the ball rolling because, you know, coming off of that second year, Troy Franklin needs to have a bounce year. He had a fantastical playoff opening, catching that touchdown, but then after that, the entire offense just went dark. And that's something that cannot happen. So I expect Troy Franklin to make a big bounce back. You know, they obviously they still have Devon Vele, and they have a couple of good playmakers, Mims and of course Cortland Sutton. But at the same time, like, we need that offensive help. We need to make the opposing defense choose if they're going to stack the box or they're going to try to play coverage. And our guys have to work to their best of their ability. And of course, Bo Nix reading the defense definitely has to get better going into year 2.
I agree with that, but I feel like what we have done so far during this free agency, where the heavy focus has been on the defense, I agree with you 100% that with our 20th pick is going to be someone on the offensive side. It's already stacked that way, because when you go out there and you grab all these guys so far on the defense, especially the top available defensive players that are out there, now the focus can definitely just be on someone on the offensive side to help Bo Nix out. If it is a running back, if it is another tight end, or if it's another wide receiver. But I do agree with you that I feel like the number 20th pick, if nothing is moved, if the Broncos don't move up or down or whatever, they're going to go with an offensive player. And what's nice about this too is, yes, we do need a running back that's going to need to help us out. But I also feel like in that position itself, we're going to be able to pick the best available player on the board. So it's not who we're looking for at a positional place where we're needing someone at a certain location and then picking the best available at that spot. Now we're just be able to go ahead and pick the best available player, say for the offense. It doesn't matter what position they play, so that they're going to be able to help out Bo Nix.
Agreed. And Ivan jumps back in saying, I'm saying every year we've been saying Chiefs will regress every year for the past 5 seasons. They still managed to maintain the division when losing players such as Tyreek, et cetera, and that he'll believe it when he sees it. And you're right. I'll give you that one. We have said the same thing. But when we said that, the Chiefs technically still kept most of their players. And I will say I ate crow on that because I was one of the people that said that Tyreek Hill leaving for Miami, that the Chiefs were done. Okay. And I've said it on the show. I was wrong about that. I admit it. That's on me. But again, that offensive line, if they can't protect Patrick Mahomes and he has to scramble every freaking play, that's a whole different story. Okay. And you're talking to Denver, the team that led in sacks last year, and your offensive line, they're going to have nightmares about what happened in Philadelphia, man.
Yeah.
That's basically what I'm trying to tell you. And yes, Andy Reid is one of the best head coaches, and they're going to have to come up with screens. They're going to have to come up with plays that are going to protect Patrick Mahomes as long as they can, because I'm telling you, and this is a prediction, and if I'm wrong, I'll definitely eat crow on this one too, but that offensive line is going to leak like a sieve. All right. And if the original offensive line couldn't handle a team like the Eagles, then what is this new built offensive line from like duct tape and all that? What is that going to do? So just keep that in mind. And unless you're a Chiefs fan, then I don't know. I don't know what else to tell you, but stay tuned. The Chiefs can't really replace an ad. That's why, and you heard me say it before, that's why it was so crucial and critical for the Chiefs to have won that Super Bowl, because they knew this was going to happen. They knew that everybody was going to become more expensive to keep, whether they won or lost, and a lot of players were going to leave.
Yeah.
That's why it hurt them a whole lot more. All right. And the one player that I felt that should have hung up his cleats and left, Travis Kelce, is still going to come and play. And he's just basically going to be Patrick Mahomes' check down. That's literally what he's going to be.
That's his safety blanket right there.
Yeah.
And it's been that way for the last several years, that Travis Kelce has always been number one wide receiver, even though he's a tight end, because he's that safety blanket for him. And because, Travis Kelce's that good. He's good. And he utilizes them to the perfect ability that they have for him. And that's why, like I was mentioning for us, that we didn't have that outlet as a Travis Kelce type of player. And I feel like Evan Ingram is going to be able to do that for the Broncos this year. Yes, he may not be the best out there, but he's going to be able to give him that outlet that we didn't have. And you're going to see a big difference that Bo's going to have a better year this year in his sophomore campaign, where you normally see sophomores tend to digress a little bit. CJ Stroud, perfect example. You know, he started to get better there at the end of the year, but during the season, he wasn't playing like what he was doing the year before.
And look at this. The boss, Johnny Baki, here with us, Libre, saying, hola, mis amigos. Also chiming in, I understand that the Chiefs keep surprising even when losing key players, but everyone's luck runs out eventually. And I am going to go ahead and keep the faith that it is sooner rather than later. Exclamation.
And that's where it is. Boom, boom, boom. Ya tú sabes, Baki.
And just for the record, ladies and gentlemen, Johnny threatened me before the show, and he said that if Libre and I didn't do the show, he was going to trade us to another team. So I'm glad that he's here to see that Libre and I are here in our orange, like always.
As always, yep. Hey, but if you're going to trade us, I make sure I want a contract extension and a raise también.
He's got to call our agent, basically. But no. This goes back to the point Libre and I have been saying, folks, that if Bo Nix is given the proper weapons, that he can definitely take this division back. Again, I have a feeling it's going to be between the Chargers and the Broncos. I said the Chargers because they're the only ones that actually beat Denver, beat them like it wasn't even close. Okay, the Chiefs, they got smoked in that second game. I don't care if it was starters, fourth stringers, UFL, doesn't matter. They all suited up to play. It was an official game. That's a win. Yep. And one blocked kick saved the Chiefs from absolutely getting swept. Yep. Okay, they won. They can take their W, but doesn't change the fact that they were that close to losing that game. Okay, so basically we have a score to settle with Los Angeles. Because, again, as you guys have heard us say before, last year, the Broncos swept the Chargers almost no problem. And that was with Herbert one game. Was it the Stickley? I believe was the backup the following one.
Yeah.
But I, for one, I'll again, if I hadn't said it, I'll say it again. I crow on that one because I thought even with Harbaugh in Los Angeles, I thought that the Broncos were going to, take the division or sweep the Chargers again. And they didn't do that. They lost to Herbert twice. So that's where I think our allegiance our priority is going to be in terms of trying to get it right. Now, a lot of people have picked the Broncos to draft Ashton Gianti all the way to the end. So it'll be interesting to see if the Broncos or if Gianti will definitely fall that far low. I don't think he will. I think he's probably going to be gone in the top 10. I think he's going to Chicago, honestly. So, Libre, what are your thoughts?
As much as I would love to have him here, and I think that's an ideal location for him to be here in Denver as well. But I also feel with you as well, he's not going to last that long. I think the furthest, the lowest that he'll go is going to be about 15. And I don't think we want to give up any type of capital that we have for this year to go up even to that spot to get him. There's been teams that are out there that have been in talks about getting him. The Raiders have been rumored to be looking at him and potentially getting him, which, that would be good for the Raiders for them to do that. That would be actually a great pick. They're going to need help on that running game itself. I've also heard possibly going to the Cowboys. The Cowboys might end up drafting him as well. So it's just really what's going to be happening with these first several picks that are going to be coming out, what the teams are really wanting to do. If Jerry Jones really wants to take, like he's always done, he doesn't want to let his GM do his job that he's hired to do. or just let him fall to the Raiders. Like it's going to be interesting what's going to happen, especially with him. But as much as I would love to have him here, I don't see him coming here to Denver.
Yeah, Johnny chimes in. He says, "I think Omarion Hampton from North Carolina is a more well-rounded back and would be a way better fit for us anyway."
I agree with that as well, and that was like going to be my next thing after we said Janty and so forth. Is he will definitely be? I think he's more on the radar for us as well, and it could be that Sean Payton is going to be doing his little trickery as well and saying, "Hey, I'm trying to get JJ McCarthy. I'm trying to do all this, trying to have this team go crazy," when they don't have anything about Hampton on the radar. And then we're going to go in there and swoop them away from people that he diverted like direction with other players.
Yeah, I still think that the Broncos have a long way to go in terms of improving the running game. Granted, it didn't really help that Javonte Williams wasn't really playing to his strength. I still feel like he was holding back, fearing the injury. Our second and third running backs, they did a good job. I'll give them that. But I always figured McLaughlin more as like a catching running back, and what's his name? Estime. Yeah, Estime. He's a pretty good runner. He's a good power runner. But when the offensive line doesn't help you and doesn't open those gaps or make those gaps like you're supposed to, it doesn't matter who's back there. You're going to get stuffed every single time, especially if the opposing defensive line is really good at what they're being paid millions of dollars to do. So that's why I think that the Broncos offensive, there's a lot of work that needs to go. And since they didn't really make any changes, that's why I was kind of pushing for a change at center, just to kind of light a fire under Wattenberg. And there's still time on it. If the Broncos they might decide to change it up, depending on what they do in the draft, or if they pick somebody up for free agency, or if they trade for a center during the season. I mean, there's a lot of still possibilities with that being said. But if you bring in some fresh blood, and even if the offensive line can find holes, then you're going to have to find a running back that can make them, or that can, exploit the line and, run off the sides, outside running back. Do something, find a way to take some of the pressure off of Bo Nix, because it's, we always take a deep breath whenever we see Bo Nix scramble, just like we did with Russell Wilson, especially when Russell Wilson did it almost every freaking snap.
Yeah.
And that's a position you don't want to put your quarterback in, because you don't know what's going to happen, especially when they run with the ball, because they're officially a runner, and linebackers are going to come and they're going to hit you like a Mack truck. Flag or no flag, be damned. Okay.
No, I agree with you 100%. You know what also surprised me, and I know I brought this up as well, is for that playoff game, when Audric Estime wasn't part of the game plan, and we actually went out there and re-added Tyler Batty, or not Batty, or the way he pronounces his Bidet.
Bidet, yeah.
The way, which is so funny to me, the way why you would pronounce your last name that way, because Batty sounds way better. But why they would activate him for that game. And then the crazy thing, he only had 2 or 3 plays that he actually played in the actual playoff game itself. When Audric Estime there at the end of the season was actually running the ball really well, and he was showing that power. I don't know if there's something that was said during that week, in the locker room or whatnot, why Sean Payton said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and get Bidet in. Like, I just really don't know what happened. But hopefully that during this offseason that Audric Estime is putting in the work, getting in healthy, getting to NFL shape. Then that's what I'm going to say, because he was a rookie last year. Get yourself into NFL shape. And if you're going to be out there, be that running back that you're just going to go downhill and just get in there and just start smash mouth football. And I feel like he can do that. But again, like how you said, we need to have the line blocking and creating those holes for us. And I feel like we got better by the end of the season with it. But I also feel like we also do that zone blocking that we've been doing for years. I feel like it might be time to change it up, where we might have to do where we have pulling guards and pulling tackles to create more holes, or to do that as well for these running backs. And if we can do that, like, trust me, I think we'll be a force to reckon with and try stopping the run.
You know what? I'm surprised. I thought that the Broncos would probably take another swing at Tim Patrick, but then he was re-signed by the Lions. So I'm surprised at that. I really thought that they would try to take another swing at T. Higgins because it looked like the Bengals were falling apart in terms of, they not making anything. And then somehow they found a way to re-sign Higgins and Jamar Chase. And hey, if you're a Bengals fan, good luck counting on that defense next year, because Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, they're going to have to put up like 50, 60 points a game to stay in it, man. It's going to be it's going to be interesting. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I still think that Bo Nix needs a wide receiver that can help take some off the top. A speed runner would definitely be great, because let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, Courtland Sutton, we love him here in Denver, but going into his, what is this? This is his
final year of his of the current contract that he has as well. So it's,
so he's going into a contract year, and obviously wide receivers, just like anybody else, they start to lose a little bit of their step. Courtland Sutton isn't really known for his top break speed. He's known for like these magnificent catches that he makes. And it's a double-edged sword, because the catches that we don't think he makes. And then the catches that hit him right in the hands do just that, hit him right in the hands and turn incomplete passes. So again, I am expecting a big break year from Troy Franklin. Troy Franklin can be that speedster, but at the same time, he can't run down the field, do cardio every single play. Okay.
No,
so that's why I thought that the Broncos were definitely going to swing big in free agency. And unfortunately, so far, Libre and I haven't been right on that. D-Rock says, cough, cough, Amari Cooper. And that's exactly what Libre's counting on. So it could be a money issue. But again, I don't know if we mentioned this earlier, Libre, but I think that a lot of these teams are really going to wait until after the draft to see what is best available there and just add a couple of pieces before training camp starts. It's because a lot of teams like to go, they try to find a diamond in the rough, especially in the undrafted side. The Broncos have done pretty good in finding undrafted players and turning them into stars, Philip Lindsay being one of them, even though he really didn't pan out all that much in Denver, but he was an undrafted free agency. And for a while, Philip Lindsay was the talk of the town. So,
well, his rookie year, he was a Pro Bowler, which was, because of the way that he ran and so forth. And he is a hometown kid. He's now on local radio here in Denver, doing afternoon sports talk. But going to like Amari Cooper itself, I just saw on Facebook on a report saying like Amari Cooper are going to be coming to Denver, and that still is a great possibility that could happen itself. I know one of the comments that I happened to see on there is that, Sean Payton may not want him here because of him being so quote unquote that type of diva of a player, and don't want that type of player in the locker room itself. I can see that, but again, I can also see that some of these players that were not that, like Amari Cooper, I don't think was ever like that true wide receiver one where he was that true superstar. Yes, at the time when he was with the Raiders and all that, where he was up there and getting all these yards with Carr and whatnot. But now that he's coming towards the end of his career, it could be where for him and that type of receiver that he is, could be like, all right, let me calm it down a little bit. Let me be that veteran that's going to be coming in. And I feel like if he's really wanting to win, say, a championship or do something good in the playoffs or do something like that, why not come to Denver? Like, you could see our upside itself.
You and I talked about this before. I still scratch my head at the whole, like, why the hell did he go to Buffalo? Why did they trade for him when he only caught, 5-10 passes his entire time there as a Bill? So that, to me, is still a whole mind-boggling aspect. I think they used him more as a decoy in the times he did play, or he saw more targets and missed catch. I don't know. But
you know what? And it's that type of gamble as well, is that you're trying to go out there for that type of player, and he may not have been that his style of play may not have been what fit there in Buffalo. So with the way that they run it and so forth, you have to gamble on these guys as well. And I feel like it just wasn't his style matched up with the way that their offense was ran. I feel like our offense is different than theirs. Hopefully that if he does come here, if we do happen to get him, that it meshes well and him and Bo Nix have a connection right away. And again, that's that gamble you always take on during free agency. Let's see if it sticks.
Well, right now, the last wide receiver rumor I read before we came on the air, Libre, was that supposedly that the Broncos were going to try to make a run at George Pickens from the Steelers. And I kind of don't believe that, because I really felt that if the Broncos wanted a wide receiver, they would have made a run at like a DK Metcalf or Chris Godwin. So especially the second contract negotiations went open, I felt that that's what they would have, and they more than likely probably would have gotten it, because I think they would have had the money or been able to sway and convince said players to come. But I just don't see it. I think George Pickens coming to Denver, even if that was something that came to fruition, would probably, there's just something about George Pickens that rubs me the wrong way. Okay.
Yeah.
And he's in a team that doesn't have a quarterback, because I have no faith in Mason Rudolph or Shaq Thompson. I don't know what the F the Steelers are even thinking or doing. And it's going to come to a point where DK and George Pickens are going to be at each other's throats, just for the simple fact that those guys are not going to be able to coincide, especially when they don't have a good quarterback to throw them the ball to. You know that.
I'm already going to predict it. It's going to happen in OTAs.
I think, yeah, exactly. It can happen. It's definitely going to happen before the season, because there's always a scuffle that breaks out at training camp for any team, you know, just for this. And it's usually always with, you know, players that come to a new team and they try to, you know, exert dominance, or I don't know. It's going to be a circus. I definitely know that. And don't be surprised if both of those guys catch more fists and fines than they actually do footballs. So, oh man, but Shai Vargas jumping in here, Libre, saying, I want that running back from North Carolina. Oh, the one that Johnny was talking about. So yeah, there is some talk about Amarion Hampton being, you know, second or third selection in the draft. So again, I'm not the college guy, so unfortunately I can't really sit and give you my 2 cents and tell you who's going to be who and who's going to be ready and who's not. But his name has been circulating around Broncos country in terms of saying, hey, I want that guy. But I believe his name came up, aside from the people that actually want to have him in Denver. I think other people are just saying that they should pick him because they know that Gianti's not going to be on the board when the Broncos are up on the board. So that's why I feel his name, and it's perfectly fine. But I have a feeling that Denver is going to do something that's going to shock a lot of people. I don't know what it is, but I just get that feeling. You know, again, Libre and I definitely think that the Broncos should get another tight end. You know, Loveland was the one that Libre suggested. I forget the name of the other young man who's also
Warren. Tyler Warren from Penn State.
Thank you, Tyler Warren, who's also regarded as one of the best picks for the first round. It is definitely going to be interesting. And D-Rock jumps in and he says that the Broncos should fall back in the draft to snag more picks. And cough, cough, I think, how do you pronounce that? Scatabo? That's an interesting take. The Broncos could definitely do that, especially if they feel that they can get some good picks in the second. I would imagine they would trade back into the second round, because unless they trade lower into the first. But as long as it isn't to a division rival, I'd be okay with it. You know, as long as it's not, hey, the Broncos trade back so the Chargers can get so-and-so, or the Raiders, or hell, even the Chiefs, if they manage to get that high for some reason. We don't want to give the AFC West rivals any more ammunition than they absolutely need. So that would definitely be a big no-no. Or to trade any players to the opposition. I mean, it's got to be hard to be a Giants fan still, even to this day, knowing that they gave the Eagles Saquon Barkley for pennies on the dollar, and that man just went out and won a Super Bowl in his first year as an Eagle.
The thing is, he went out there and was the best offensive player out there for the year itself. You know, he goes in there and breaks the rushing record for the year, you know, beating Terrell Davis. But the thing is, he also could have broke the record if he didn't sit out that last week of the game, the last game of the season itself. But you know what? That is the thing that you need to do as a free agent, especially the team that's saying, you know what, we like you, but we're going to let you go. You go out there, you go to a team, and you just go out there and outperform. You just go out there and perform. And that's what he did. And he just basically put it back into the face of the Giants saying, look what you missed out. This is what I could have done for you. We could have been here. We could have been in the Super Bowl itself with me, with the offensive production that I put out. But you know what? Again, that's what happens. And I think he also had that fire in him as well. Like, you know what? This team doesn't want me. I'm going to go out to a team who truly wants me, and I'm going to go out there and kick butt. And that's what he did.
Shai Vargas has a question here for us, Libra. He says, do you think the Eagles could run it back to the Super Bowl? You know what? With Vic Fangio at the helm, even with the pieces that the Eagles lost, we've seen Vic Fangio literally build the defense out of tape, like duct tape. Okay. And if for those of you that don't remember, go back and look at our 2020 season, I believe it was, when the Broncos had more injured players and more wasted money on IR than probably than the Niners did last season. And Vic Fangio had to go out there and take practice squad guys or anybody walking in the parking lot outside who could fit in a jersey and cleats. I mean, what Vic Fangio did with the Eagles defense in 1 year's time. Okay, because 2 years ago, the Eagles got laughed and bounced out of the playoffs by the Bucs. All right. So the fact that he was able to do with that defense in 1 year, and you there is no way the Dolphins aren't kicking themselves because they had Vic Fangio in their house on their team. That could have been them. But something happened, and I'm telling you, I'm wearing my conspiracy hat under this one. Something happened that made Vic Fangio leave the Dolphins, go sign with the Eagles, turn that defense around, and take them straight with the help of the offense, of course. But let's be honest, the defense is the main reason why the Eagles crushed the Chiefs in that Super Bowl. And God, I love saying that.
Shai, for me on this question here is like, honestly, right now they're favorite to go back into the Super Bowl. But I see what the Washington Commanders have been doing. They are going to push hard and give them all that they can do. And again, same division. So what I love about that, the NFC East, is that they have these two teams that are doing so great, and then the two teams that are not. Like those two teams, I feel are going to be battling back and forth for each other this upcoming season. And it's going to be the war of attrition. Who's going to have a healthier team at the end of the year? Who's actually going to get there? It could be either one of these teams. And this is my prediction now, early in the offseason, where I feel like it could be the Eagles or the Commanders in the Super Bowl facing the Broncos.
And D-Rock has another question for us. He says, how sweet must the pot be in order to trade draft picks with the Chargers or the Chiefs? Well, in this draft, I would definitely say neither, because I think the Broncos are ahead of both of them. I could be wrong. But I know the Raiders are top 10. They have to be top 10 because they were one of the worst teams last year. But the Raiders would have to be absolutely crazy to trade with the Broncos and put them up top for the Broncos to get one of the really good players in this year's draft class. So I don't think the Raiders are going to do that. And personally, I wouldn't do that if I was them, because the last thing we need to hear is you trade picks with them and they get the next Patrick Mahomes or the next Ed Reed or the next Travis Kelce or whatever best at their position. And then we have to hear about it for the next infinity. So I don't think it's worth it. But then again, I'm not the general manager, and I'm definitely not Sean Payton.
So going up to his follow-up question right now, he says, what if they wanted to go to number 20? So that means that, say the Raiders already took the number 6 spot, but they wanted somebody else that they come in. If the price was right, if we got, say, another pick, like 2 second rounders or something like that, something of high value, especially for that first round. And if we don't have anybody that's on our draft board that we want at 20, you know what? It's all about that draft capital, and you're always going to want that draft capital. Yes, it might still be in the division itself and so forth, but if you don't have that player at 20, I say, why not do it? Because now you're creating more capital for yourself, for the team. If it's not for this year, definitely going into next year's draft as well, because you never know what could happen. But again, the Raiders might have a terrible draft, and we say they give us their number one for next year as well for this year's, and then say a fourth rounder this year as well. And if we can do that, what if the Raiders just are, again, how they are, just terrible? And if they are that terrible, we're going to have a high draft pick that we're going to be taking over from them. So if it's the price is right, absolutely, I would say go ahead and do it. If our guy is not going to be available to us at number 20.
Yeah, I so wholeheartedly agree. And ladies and gentlemen, we are getting to the 1 hour mark of today's show, which means it is almost time for Libre and I's favorite part of the show. But as we get towards the 1 hour mark, our 1 hour mark, we just want to reiterate our point, kind of like a closing, if you will, is that basically that the Broncos so far have really done a great job in free agency. Okay, let's get that out the way. Now, what the Broncos, I believe, are trying to do is that they're trying to, kind of see what they can do in the draft in terms of filling all the needs that we talked about today and in previous episodes, and that we're more likely going to talk about everything leading up to the draft. So pretty much they are going to have to go and fill in the running back position, the tight end position, what else? Maybe offensive line later on down the road in terms of the draft, and they can go and pick up some rotational pieces. Whatever they don't pick up or do in the draft, I believe that they're going to go back into free agency and see who's best available. Or they might decide to trade some pieces to other teams. We talked about Nick Chubb earlier. They can definitely go and make a run at him. They can try to make a run at a wide receiver from another team to bring him in, a speedster, to kind of work off with Troy Franklin, or just to have as a rotational piece with Cortland Sutton. I mean, there is still a lot of things that can happen, but only time will tell what they can do. And before I turn it over to Libre, Mike Dub says Broncos won the West in free agency. I couldn't agree with you more.
100%,
they definitely did.
100%.
And shout out to Mike for joining us. My high salute to you, brother. And guys, make sure you go check out Mike on his YouTube channel. He's got a lot of great lineups coming up in terms of media battles. I have to rewatch a couple of them, Libre, because sometimes I listen to them when I'm in my car, and I may have missed a couple things, so I have to rewatch them just to make sure I heard what I heard, and I recommend it to everybody. So shout out to Mike for being a supporter of the show.
So hey everyone, if you're out there, if you have not done this already, go out there and subscribe to Mike's channel. He has some great content that's out there, Broncos related. Go out there and do it. We love you, Mike.
By the way, every time I see Mike's last name, I don't know if he's actually Italian, but it sounds Carmelini. So in my voice, I always read it as an Italian. Like if I ever met Mike in person, I'd be like, "Hey, how you doing?
How you doing?
You Mark Carmelini? All right. Hey, how's the family? How's everything? Huh? All right. Good to see you." Huh? I don't know why. I think it's his last name. I think it's awesome. That's awesome. But Libre, your final thoughts on the subject of building around Bo.
You know what? So far, what they say is doesn't matter where you're getting your personnel at. Even though our offseason right now has been heavy on the defensive side, that still helps Bo. You know why? Because you're getting him on the field where he can produce points for us. This is the defense I feel like we're going to be out there, and we're going to be able to stop a lot of these drives that these offenses have and get them off the field so that Bo Nix can go out there, do his job, and put points on the board.
I wholeheartedly agree. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take an early minute jump into our favorite segment of today's show. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for some overtime. That line sounded a whole lot better in my head. I'm going to have to take that back to the drawing board and retool it. So I'm telling you, that tagline sounded a whole lot better in my head all day. This is why I need to start writing stuff down, because I'm old and I forget stuff. I don't know. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Broncos Overtime. If you've never heard or been here before, basically Libre and I kind of let our hair down, so to speak, and talk about anything and whatever's going on in our lives. Or if you guys have any questions or comments in the chat you want to get off your chest, it's definitely probably not going to be football related, but if we can find a way to tie it back to the Broncos, then we definitely will. I know last week we talked about the free agency. Libre and I kind of went around and gave our thoughts about the subject. But today, Libre, I have to talk about something that just happened this past weekend to me. And I'm pretty sure it's happened to everybody, especially those that are Uber drivers like myself. But this past weekend was St. Patrick's Day weekend. And here in Chicago, us drivers were definitely busy. There were people all over the place. Thousands and thousands of people flocked to downtown Chicago for the dyeing of the river, which was great. My thing is, like, the amount of people that got in my car and stunk to high hell of mostly alcohol. Like, ladies and gentlemen, we have to have, and these are grown-ups, mind you. So I never thought I'd have to have this conversation. But ladies and gentlemen, like, I get it. You want to go out and bar crawl and do all the cool stuff that whatever young people do nowadays. I've never been to a bar crawl. Never. It's never fascinated me.
What?
Yeah, I've never done a bar crawl. Like, I'm the kind of guy, when I go to a bar, I sit my fat ass down and I'm there the entire time, because I'm not trying to get in line to get in and, work my way to the bar and all that stuff, and especially now because I'm old. But I get it, especially like a lot of people went out and partied Friday night, because you could definitely smell it on them that they did. But the fact that they are able to just get up and call an Uber and not worry about, hey, let me freshen up real quick, let me change my clothes, let me take a shower, let me brush my teeth, do something like that, but just get in a car with a bunch of other people, mind you, and nobody's the wiser. Like, and it sucks for me because I have to air out my car before I go pick up the next passenger, or try to anyway. And it was a miracle that I didn't carry my bottle of Febreze and just start spraying that bastard all over the place, and have to keep apologizing to my next passenger and tell him, hey, it's not me, because the last thing I'm trying to do is get reported to say, hey, I think my driver's drunk. So it's like, it's almost like a PSA.
But I think for that too, like, these guys are also so drunk or they're so hungover that I don't feel like they're ever gonna report you saying, "Oh, my driver, I think, was drinking," because they are probably smelling themselves in the first place. I
don't know. I'm telling you, there was one guy that sat right next to me because it was a group of 4, and oh my God, this freaking guy. And he was talking to me, so not only did his body smell of alcohol, but his breath smelled of alcohol. Like, he chugged the beer before he came in, and it was just like, just ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad they actually Ubered and they didn't drive. Obviously they weren't completely inebriated, but you could definitely tell that they should have probably stayed in that morning, freshened up, and then maybe go out later. But the fact that they literally said in my face that they all just got up like an hour ago and, like, I think they grabbed something quick to eat, and then they were literally on their way downtown, because the river dyeing was at 10 a.m. that morning. So everybody was trying to get there to go to the river, and then they all just kind of scattered all over downtown. They hit the bars. Most of them have never been to Chicago. They've never seen that many people. They were here for the first time. So it was a traffic nightmare, by the way. But I made my money. Like, I'm glad I did. And I got the hell out of there and I came straight home. So, but again, that's just my gripe to pick. I don't know if you have any gripes, Libre, that you want to talk about, but that's
not any gripes. My thing is, because I went to, here in downtown Denver, we have a parade as well on Saturday, and we're always there. Yep. And what was crazy is I haven't been to the parade in over 10 years or something. But for some reason, at the corner that we were at, And I noticed that because there's across the street, I noticed this lady carrying a bag of marshmallows, or she was standing at the gate with marshmallows. So we're there waiting for the parade to start. There's an apartment building that's just right behind where I was standing at. And the people that live there has this little balcony area just on street level. And they come out with this huge bowl of marshmallows. And I was like, what the heck's going on? And then they just proceeded, once the parade started, they were throwing the marshmallows at the people in the parade. So, or if it was a car, they were trying to throw it into the windows of the cars, trying to hit the driver or whatnot. But I was like, this is so strange. Like, why is this happening? And then out of nowhere, there's this little kid. She's probably about 6-7 years old. Every time there's a little break in the parade, she would grab a handful of these marshmallows that were on the street, would grab them, and then she'd come, because she was on the other side, come running to our side and just start throwing them into other kids' face. One of these kids was funny. One of the kids had a water gun. So as soon as she came up and tried to throw it, the kid was already squirting her right in the face. And it happened for about an hour or so. The parade, for some reason, lasted like 3 hours. But for about an hour or so, they were just going back and forth, getting the marshmallows and started pelting them against each other. But just overall, just like the marshmallows itself, that's something that I'd never seen before. So that was unique as to why that was happening. I need to try to see if I can get some context on it. But it happened to be the corner where we were at. And I was like, this is just strange. And like the people were ready for it. So I don't know if it's a tradition that they have at that corner or whatnot. But that for me was a little strange. I guess you could say a little gripe of the weekend, because one of the kids actually hit me in the shoulder with the marshmallow just because he had an awful throw. And of course, me being who I am, I played it off. I was like, oh, my shoulder. Oh, you just hurt me. Like, just all in fun. But like, it was, still a good time, having some fun. But that's my only thing from this weekend.
You know what? And I actually had one of the questions that some of my passengers ask is because most of the time we listen to music. Like I let my passengers pick if they want to listen to a certain type of music, totally fine. But if I see that they're on, like they're sleeping or they have headphones on, they're not paying attention, it's like, okay, then we don't have to listen to music. So I put on, a podcast. And then I guess they tune in and out. And there was this one guy who basically asked me like, hey, like, how did you come about, doing a podcast? Because I was telling him that I'm part of one. And he's like, do you ever listen to yourself? And I said, no, I have never listened to an entire podcast of mine, because I feel like my voice sounds really weird. Like I've listened to parts of it when somebody points out to me like, hey, I listened to this. Mostly it's from Chris. Yeah. Shout out to Chris, who's like, hey, I hear this, or I don't hear this, or this is off, and blah, blah. Then I go back and I listen to that and I fix it. But I've never actually sat down and listened to an entire like audio podcast on myself, because I just find it weird, But I don't know if I told this story on this show. And if I have, I'm sorry if you're hearing it again for like the millionth time, but I'll try to be quick. So basically I told him that the way I came about being on the starting my own podcast was, obviously I started mine the same time the entire world did, was during the pandemic. And I used to be really into, that's when I started getting into it. And I joined Mile High Huddle. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Libre, but yeah, they're still pretty big. They're one of the bigger Broncos podcasts out there, right up there with the powerhouses, with the Brandon Pernas and the Dave Logans and all that. And I was listening. I was really into them. So, I'd watch them every time they streamed. I'd followed Zach Kelberman when he did Broncos 24/7, and then he transferred over to Mile High Huddle, I believe it was, or I don't know how that happened, but that's where I started following him, and then he came over to Mile High Huddle, and then I started watching him, and that's where I met Glenn Hauser. That's where I met Mundungus, and I'm not sure if Boggins was there already. I don't remember if Boggins was there or if I met him through Mundungus, but that's eventually where all three of us met, because we were always in the chat room every time they went live. So one day I thought to myself, like, hey, like, I think I could do this. I want to sit and talk about the Broncos. And Obviously, I didn't think that I'd ever reach the capacity of where we are today, or even to where MHH was at the time in terms of their popularity. But I was like, you know what the hell? The total shot in the dark. If it fails, then hey, it fails. What's the worst thing happen? Nobody listens to it, and it's just my voice sitting on the internet forever. Who knows? So I went out and I bought this mic for like, I think it was like $60-70. Bought this camera that was like $60-70 too. And like I set it all up. And if you go back and listen to like my first audio recording, like I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I was so nervous, which is weird because I'm like, I took public speaking classes in high school. Like I could talk in front of 100 people and not feel nervous about it. But if you talk to like one, it's like they always taught us that you could talk in front of a bunch of people and nobody would know you made a mistake. But if you talk to one person and you made a mistake, that person can point it out, obviously, because it's just you just one-on-one. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's basically how it started. And if you go back to it, and I'm pretty sure, and Mundunga still gives me crap about this to this day, that instead of talking to this microphone, I was talking to the microphone that comes into the web camera. That's why it sounds all like fuzzy and like messed up, because I didn't even check my audio at the time. I just recorded and talked about whatever. And to this day, last time I checked, that first episode, the pilot episode of Broncos Talk, is still the most listened to episode to date. So I think it's got over 40 different listeners, if I'm not mistaken. And then probably like about a week or two later, I got a message from Mundungus that, you know, him and Glenn and Boggins, I think it was, and this other young lady named Christy, we're going to start a podcast for called MHRT, Mahai Roundtable. And actually, I don't think it was Christy. There was another guy. I forget his name. Unfortunately, he passed away before MHRT premiered. So I think that's when we went out and found Christy, and Christy agreed to come and be on the show. So if you guys ever want to like look back on nostalgia, go back on the MHRT archives. I'm pretty sure our very first episode is still up there. Like, you had like 4 or 5 people who really had no experience in podcasting or anything really go up there and just have the time of their lives, you know. And it was amazing. I enjoyed every single moment of it, you know, working with Christy and Boggins and Glenn Hauser and Mundungus. And I think that the best part and the advice that I give to a lot of people that, you know, that ask me about podcasting and what it is they should do and all that, just have fun. You know, don't worry about the analytics, because if you start worrying about analytics and viewers and subscribers and all that stuff, I'm not saying don't do it, forget about it. I'm saying don't let it get you down, because when you start losing yourself in that, then your content begins to suffer. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love coming on here and talking football with you, and when I do get to meet jump on with Baki and Jay and all the other guys in our group chat. You know, but if you would have told me 5 years ago that I was going to sit here and be live streaming and have 2 shows, one in English and one in Spanish, on my very first episode, I think you were lying to me, because I could honestly tell you, like, I never thought anybody would listen. I didn't think anybody would care. And I still have the original message that Chris sent me, like, hey man, like, I listened to your show. I love it. You're great. Can't wait for next week's episode. And it only takes one person to send you a message like that, and to just be the wind underneath your wings, and just uplift you and give you such a boost of confidence. That's why I always tell everybody, when I do remember at the end of our shows, to, you know, continue to support Broncos media. If there's somebody out there that you see as a podcaster that's doing it for the very first time, show your support. You know, even if you can't be there every episode, hey, leave a comment, a like, because you have no idea how much that means to that one person. And if you can just give them that confidence and say, hey, you matter, it's like winning the lottery, man.
It's right there.
Yeah.
You know, this is like, honestly, like for me as well, Baki approached me asking me about about doing the podcast in Spanish itself. And prior to that, like maybe for the last year, maybe 2 years, I've always talked about and had another couple friends talk about doing it, but we never actually put it into motion. We never did anything about it. So when Baki came over and said, hey, we have the show idea, it's all about Spanish, let's go ahead and do it. Like, are you interested in doing it? I go, you know what? I've been talking about doing a show, a podcast, Spanish, English, doesn't matter what. I just wanted to do one that was Bronco related and so forth. So when I got that opportunity, I was all over it. Like, and of course, I feel like if you go back to my first episode as well, when I jumped on with Jay and Baki itself, just to jump off, getting me in there, like I was super nervous, like, not knowing the expectations of what was going to be happening, what was going to go on, or how things were going to work, and so forth. And I just thank you for the opportunity. I love it. Who knows what's going to go for the future itself, So this has been a great opportunity. I'm so glad that I said, yes, let's do this. And I'm having a good time. It's so much fun. And I feel like how you're saying, if you have something that you're passionate about, if you want to just talk about it, and if it's once a week, once a month, whatever it is, go out there and just do it. Like, you're going to have so much satisfaction after you've done it several times and going on with it. It's just satisfaction that you get day in and day out.
I'm sorry. I just had a random thought. So I was thinking, because somebody, I don't know who it was, they ever asked me, had I ever had an embarrassing moment while on live? And I said, yes, while we were streaming. And I said, I had 2. And I'm pretty sure Mundungus never edited, and they're still up there somewhere on the MHRT videos. The first time was when I was gonna wear my Broncos gloves, but I couldn't find my other one, so I forgot to take off the one I had, and we started going live, and I looked like Michael Jackson because I had one glove on and one glove not, and the guys were ribbing me for it, and I forgot what the hell I said. I think I was trying to play it off, but I totally forgot. So that was embarrassing. And the second one was, and this was actually a couple times, but like when I was downstairs, I'd always used to lock my door. But even though I told my parents, like, hey, I'm going to be recording, like, don't bother me for an hour, they'd always like yell random stuff down in the basement. One time my dad literally walked across the screen with no shirt on. And I was just sitting there. That show. And I was just sitting there. I was like, oh my God. And I thought Mundungus was going to send me like the most hateful message, but he just got like a big laugh out of it. And somebody's like, hey, at least he's wearing pants, Like, yeah, got to that. And I almost fell off my chair as I said that.
That's funny.
So that's the beautiful thing about live TV or streaming or whatever you want to call this, is that it's unedited. And what happens on the air is on the air.
Oh yeah.
I'll actually add this other point. 2 weeks ago, and Libre knows where I'm going with this. On Viva Los Broncos, midway through the show, I had to use the bathroom so bad that I was trying to hold it, and I didn't want to cut off and leave Libre by himself, because unfortunately, currently Libre doesn't have full control of the show like I do in terms of comments and videos and all that. Not yet. So I kept thinking to myself, if I just pan out, and even though I told Libre, like I sent him a message, like I didn't want to leave him sitting there, not knowing why the hell I'm not there, or where did I go, or how long I was going to be, because I didn't want to be that guy. So for like 30 minutes, I was just sitting here crossing my legs and just like gritting my teeth. And the second we went off the air, I was like, okay, Libre, I got to go, man. Love you. I got to use the bathroom. Bye. And ran straight to him. Yeah, I was gone. So every time on Friday, like I think we started last week, I told Libre, like, hey man, I took care of it. I went to the bathroom. I'm good, bro. No more frijoles before the show.
No frijoles, okay?
Like I'm telling you, like it was embarrassing, but at the same time, it's what makes me love the show, makes me love what we do so much. So again, even though these are all embarrassing moments and things that happen, it'll make a great story in my autobiography one day, I guess. I don't know.
Hey, you know what you're going to have? When they always say they're going to have a highlight reel of everything that you've done, that's just going to be part of it,
Yeah, it definitely is. But ladies and gentlemen, if there's nothing else to add for today's show, then fortunately we're gonna have to call it right here. We would like to thank all of our people in our chat: Juan Marquez, Mike Lived Up, D-Rock. Who else are we missing here? Shai Vargas, of course, the boss Baki, my cousin Ivan, that was him.
That was him.
Yeah, that was him, because he just sent me a message like, "Hey man, great show," or whatever. And I was like, "Bro, you're supposed to be at work. Go back to work."
Hey, work. He has breaks too. It's okay if he wants to listen to us on his break.
Yeah, he's gonna. He's part of. We have like a week-long vacation after today. So my vacation starts after Friday. His starts after today. So, but yeah, he definitely has. Who else did we have on here? I don't know if Sega Addict was part of our show.
No,
he may have came from. Yeah, it looked like he came from somewhere else. But thank you so much for coming anyway. Fanatic Dak, of course. Kodiak Broncos podcast. I don't know if I gave you a shout out, but thanks.
Fanatic Dak.
Fanatic Dak, yes, who's in our chat and on our phone in here as well. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for us today. We would like to remind you to please subscribe, share, comment, and like on today's show. All of that, your support is definitely very, very, very well appreciated. Also, remember that this is a simulcast, so please make sure you show your love for our friends over at MHRT Network as well. Subscribe, share, comment, and like on all of their content and programming as well. Shout out to W for being a sponsor of this show and all the shows here on the Orange and Blue Network. And of course, remember, if you use the code NRWOB10 to get 10% off at checkout on your W order. Shout out to W once again for being sponsor, and shout out to Johnny Bach and the guys over at the Nothing Rhymes With for the hookup with 10% off. Audio listeners, as I said earlier on in the show, thank you so much for making last week's episode the highest peak rate show of the year and probably of the history, if I'm being honest with you. So hopefully we can do the same when this show hits the airwaves. Of course, as Libre and I always say, please make sure you leave a 5-star review, screenshot it, send it to us so we can read it here on air. If you want our socials, they're right there at the bottom. Mine is on Twitter at a 6'10" Mexican. Bronco Libre is at Bronco Libre 5280. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, please make sure to show your support, your continued support for Broncos content all over the world. What else am I forgetting? Because I'm old. Oh, also make sure you check us out on Fridays for Viva los Broncos, which is a Spanish-led podcast. Tell your friends we go live every single Friday at 7 o'clock Central. What is that? 8 o'clock Eastern, 6 Mountain, 5 o'clock Pacific. So make sure you subscribe to both the MHRT and Nothing Rhymes With channels so you're always live and up to date whenever Libre and I go live. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure being with you here today, tonight, whenever it is you are listening to us. But with that being said, he's Bronco Libre. I'm Adan Diaz. This has been Broncos Talk here on the Orange and Blue and MHRT Network. So with that said, we say good day, good night, good afternoon to you guys. And as always, go Broncos!
Broncos, let's go!
Woo!